Welcome to the Deep Dive. This week, we're taking a deep dive into the life and career of the legendary Dame Maggie Smith. You all sent over some fascinating articles, and I have to say, while we all know her from Downton Abbey and the Harry Potter films, I'm really excited to kind of uncover the layers beneath those iconic roles.
I think you'll be amazed by what we discover. It's easy to forget that those performances, as brilliant as they are, represent just a fraction of her 6-decade career.
6 decades. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around. So where do we even begin to unpack a legacy that immense?
Well, the articles make it clear that to truly understand Dame Maggie Smith, we need to start on the stage. Long before she graced the silver screen, she was already a force to be reckoned with in the world of British theater.
That's right. Several of these articles mention her early work at the Oxford Playhouse and then making her way to Broadway in the mid-1950s.
Her Broadway debut was in 1956 in a revue called New Faces of 1956. Can you imagine starting your career alongside all that raw talent? But it was on the London stage where she really cemented her reputation.
The articles mention a record-breaking achievement, 6 Evening Standard Awards for her stage performances. What does that even mean in the grand scheme of a career?
It's monumental, actually. The Evening Standard Theatre Awards are a really big deal in the UK. Think of it as the British equivalent of the Tonys. To win 6 of them for acting is almost unheard of. It speaks volumes about not just her talent, but also her dedication to her craft, even at that early stage. This wasn't just beginner's luck. This was a pattern of consistently delivering incredible performances.
Okay, I'm getting chills. Do the articles mention any specific roles from that period that really highlight what made her so special?
Absolutely. One that stands out is her performance as Desdemona in Shakespeare's Othello, opposite Laurence Olivier, no less. This was in 1964, and it actually earned her her first Oscar nomination.
Wait, her first Oscar nomination was for a stage role. That doesn't happen every day. I need more details.
Right. It's incredibly rare, which goes to show you the impact she had. Imagine being that good, that captivating on stage that you grab the attention of Hollywood. Talk about making an entrance. And keep in mind, this is Laurence Olivier. We're talking about a giant of British theater. So for her to not only share the stage with him, but to hold her own in such a demanding role, it really speaks to her talent.
Absolutely. I'm already sensing a theme here. Dame Maggie defying expectations and breaking boundaries from the very start.
Exactly, and it didn't stop there. Another role the articles highlight is her portrayal of Hedda Gabler, which, if you're not familiar, is considered one of the most challenging roles for an actress. And to make things even more intense, this production was directed by Ingmar Bergman, a true visionary, but also known for his demanding style. This was his first time directing outside of Scandinavia, so you know the stakes were high.
That's a lot of pressure. It makes you wonder if she sought out these challenges, these opportunities to push herself beyond her comfort zone.
It's a great question, and it makes me think about something else the articles touch upon. Even in her early career, Dame Maggie often played characters far older than her actual age. Oh, right. There was that quote about her always feeling like she was stuck in corsets, wigs, and button boots. She even joked about rarely being seen in modern dress, which is kind of wild considering how many period dramas she ended up doing.
Isn't it? And here's the kicker. That quote wasn't from her later years, reflecting on her career. She said that in 1993. So clearly this whole typecasting thing was already a pattern even then.
It's fascinating how certain actors get typecast, isn't it? Makes you wonder what roles they might have wanted to play but never got the chance to. But speaking of breaking free from expectations, there's one more stage role the articles really highlight that I want to make sure we discuss. Lettice and Lovage.
Ah, yes. Lettice and Lovage from 1990. This one really showcases Dame Maggie's incredible range. It's a comedy, for one, which might surprise those who mainly associate her with dramatic roles. And not just any comedy. She won a Tony Award for this one, right?
She did. And it's a testament to her versatility. She played this eccentric tour guide, Lettice Dufay, who spices up her tours of a rather dull English manner with increasingly elaborate and completely fabricated historical tales. It's a play that really lets her cut loose, embrace the absurd, and showcase her comedic timing. Imagine the Dowager Countess, but instead of witty barbs, she's spinning these outrageous yarns.
Okay, now I need to see this. That sounds so wonderfully unexpected. It makes you think about how actors, especially those with long careers, must constantly fight against being pigeonholed.
Absolutely, and this was a prime example of Dame Maggie proving she was more than capable of tackling diverse roles with depth and brilliance. It's interesting that you mention actors fighting against being pigeonholed because the articles draw this really intriguing parallel between Dame Maggie's on-screen persona and her real life.
Oh, you mean that whole thing about her being a bit of an introvert? I mean, she was famous for her sharp wit and interviews, but there's also this consistent thread of her valuing her privacy and even admitting to shyness.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of actors, that kind of duality makes sense. On the one hand, you have this incredible talent for inhabiting other characters, for becoming someone else entirely. But on the other hand, that can make it difficult to define who you are when the cameras aren't rolling. There's a quote from Dame Maggie where she talks about finding comfort in being someone else, and it really resonated with me.
It does make you wonder if for someone like her, acting was more than just a job, Maybe it was a way of exploring different facets of herself, of finding a voice when she felt uncertain about her own.
That's a really insightful observation, and it makes me think about something else the articles touch on. Her ability to infuse even her most prickly characters with a sense of vulnerability. It's like you can see the wheels turning behind those piercing eyes, and it makes her all the more captivating. But we've been so focused on the stage, and I know you're eager to delve into her film career, so why don't we transition to the silver screen?
Yes, please. I'm ready for our close-up. Where do we even begin with filmography as extensive as hers?
Well, we have to start with a role that truly catapulted her to international fame. Miss Jean Brodie in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie from 1969.
Oh, the one that earned her that first Oscar win we were talking about earlier.
The very same. And it's a performance worth revisiting. She plays this unconventional teacher in a 1930s girls' school, a woman who challenges the rigid social norms of the time and encourages her students to embrace life on their own terms. It's a complex, nuanced role, and Dame Maggie inhabits it with such depth and intelligence. You see both the charisma and the flaws of this woman, and it makes for a truly unforgettable portrayal.
I'm picturing her now commanding that classroom with her wit and her unconventional teaching methods. It sounds like this role really captured the zeitgeist of the late 60s, this period of social upheaval and questioning authority.
It absolutely did. And it's interesting to think about how that theme of challenging conventions, of pushing boundaries, seems to be a recurring one in Dame Maggie's career, both on and off screen.
Okay, what about another film for us to consider?
All right, let's jump ahead a few years to Travels with My Aunt from 1972. Remember how we were talking about her always being cast in period pieces, even in her younger years? Well, this film is a prime example.
How so? What's the story behind this one?
Well, she plays a free-spirited, eccentric woman in her 70s who whisks her nephew away on a whirlwind adventure across Europe. But here's the kicker. Dame Maggie was only 37 years old when she took on this role.
Wow, that's even younger than I was expecting. It makes you appreciate her range even more to be able to portray someone decades older than herself and pull it off so convincingly. That's true transformation.
It really speaks to her talent, doesn't it? She wasn't afraid to disappear into a role to completely embody a character, even if it meant playing against her own age or persona.
It's a shame she didn't do more comedic roles, because she clearly had a knack for it. Didn't she do another film with a comedic edge? Something about a manor house.
You're thinking of Gosford Park, which was released in 2001. It's a bit of a hidden gem, but it's brilliant. It's a murder mystery set in a grand English country estate in the 1930s, and it features a stellar ensemble cast. It's actually the film that brought Dame Maggie together with Julian Fellowes, the creator of Downton Abbey.
Oh, wow. I had no idea they had worked together before Downton Abbey. So we can thank Gosford Park for paving the way for that iconic pairing.
Absolutely. And her character in Gosford Park, the sharp-tongued Countess of Trentham, is a delight. You can see glimpses of the Dowager Countess in her performance, that same dry wit and ability to cut through social pretense with a single look.
I can only imagine the onset stories. Okay, so we have the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, Travels with My Aunt, and Gosford Park, all very different films showcasing Dame Maggie's incredible range. What else should we add to our watch list?
Well, one that deserves a spot on that list is A Room with a View.
Oh, yes. A Room with a View. It's one of those films I feel like I should have seen.
It's a classic. Released in 1985, it's considered a quintessential Merchant Ivory film, known for those lush period dramas with complex characters, often set in the early 20th century. And Dame Maggie, she fits in perfectly.
Of course. What role does she play?
She plays Charlotte Bartlett, a chaperone for a young woman traveling through Italy. The film is based on an E.M. Forster novel, if you're familiar, and it beautifully captures that tension between societal expectations and personal desires, especially for women in that era.
Yeah, sounds like my kind of film. I'll have to add that to my watch list for sure. It's remarkable how even in supporting roles, Dame Maggie had this ability to just steal scenes and leave a lasting impression.
It's true. She didn't need to be the center of attention to captivate an audience. There was this quiet power in her performances, a certain presence that commanded your attention, even if she was just standing silently in the background.
It's like she could convey an entire world of emotions with just a glance or a perfectly timed pause.
I'm thinking back on all these incredible performances we've discussed, from those early days on stage to her iconic film roles, and it's clear she leaves behind a remarkable legacy. The outpouring of tributes from her co-stars, it speaks volumes. They talk about her professionalism, her generosity, her wicked sense of humor. And what I find especially fascinating is that she achieved this level of success and adoration despite her own feelings about fame. She famously disliked watching herself on stream and really valued her privacy fiercely.
It's almost ironic, isn't it? This woman who could inhabit other characters so brilliantly, who could command the attention of millions, was most comfortable when she could just blend into the background, away from the spotlight. It seems like she found more joy in the craft of acting itself, in that process of becoming someone else, than in all the trappings of celebrity, which I think is a good lesson for all of us.
It really is. In a world obsessed with outward appearances, Dame Maggie reminds us that true fulfillment, it comes from pursuing our passions with integrity, with dedication, even if it means shying away from the limelight.
And on that note, it feels strange to say goodbye to such a legend. But I think what we've learned today is that her work, it will continue to speak for itself, for generations to come. So for those of you listening, as you revisit her films or maybe even discover some of those lesser-known gems for the first time, ask yourselves, what is it about Dame Maggie Smith's performances that resonates so strongly with you? What is it about those characters, often prickly and defiant, that feels so familiar, so comforting even? Something to ponder as we celebrate the extraordinary legacy of a truly one-of-a-kind talent.